separate people who build empires from people who build excuses.
Okay.
Let's get into it. Comfort is rarely loud. It doesn't announce itself as danger. It feels reasonable.
Have you ever
It
getting
feels
scared?
earned. It feels like rest, like relief, like deserve this. That's why it's powerful. And that's why it's expensive.
You what?
Every day you're making small decisions that feel insignificant. You hit snooze instead of getting up to train your body. You scroll instead of studying something that sharpens your mind. You avoid a difficult phone call because you don't want tension. None of these choices look catastrophic. In isolation, they're harmless. But life is not shaped by isolated decisions. It is shaped by repeated patterns. The problem with comfort is not that it exists. The problem is that it compounds. When you repeatedly choose what feels easy now, you are quietly voting for a weaker version of yourself later. You were reinforced.
Hold up, there's nobody in here yet. What's going on?
Someone who delays responsibility. Someone who prioritizes relief over growth. And identity is powerful. Once you see yourself a certain way, your behavior aligns with it automatically. Let's break this down logically. Every choice has a
Everybody
trade-off.
knows what you mean for
If
that.
you choose comfort in the moment, what are you trading away? You're trading away progress that could have been made during that same time. You're trading away skill development, physical resilience, financial leverage, relational depth. You're also trading away self-trust. Self-trust is built when you do what you said you would do. It erodes when you don't. Imagine someone who promises themselves they'll start saving money. They say, I'll put aside 10% of my income every month. The first month, something comes up. A sale, a trip, a new phone. They
1/3.
justify it. I'll start next month. Next month becomes next year. 10 years pass. The income may have increased, but so have the expenses. The habit of saving is never built. The opportunity cost is invisible but enormous. Had they invested consistently, even modestly, time would have worked in their favor. Instead, time worked against them. This is how comfort operates. It delays small sacrifices that would have created long-term strength. You tell yourself you'll get serious about your health when things calm down. But life rarely calms down. Responsibilities multiply. Energy decreases. What would have taken moderate effort at 25 requires significant effort at 40. The cost of delay increases with time. The body keeps score. So does the bank account. So does your skill set. Comfort whispers, not today. Discipline responds, today matters. There's a quiet truth most people avoid. Growth feels inconvenient. It disrupts routines. It exposes insecurities. It forces you to confront your limitations. When you start learning a new skill, you feel incompetent. When you start building a business, you face rejection. When you commit to a higher standard in relationships, you risk conflict. Discomfort is not a sign you're on the wrong path. Often, it's evidence that you're expanding, but expansion requires friction. If you consistently remove friction from your life, you also remove growth. Look at how misplaced focus quietly destroys outcomes. You say your goal is financial independence, yet your time is spent consuming entertainment designed to distract you. You say your goal is a strong relationship, yet you avoid honest conversations because they feel uncomfortable. You say your goal is mastery in your craft, yet you rarely practice deliberately because it requires deep focus and delayed gratification. Your stated priorities and your actual behavior are in conflict, and behavior always wins. This is not about being harsh with yourself. It's about being honest. You cannot have high-level outcomes with low-level habits. The math doesn't work. There is also an emotional layer here that matters. Comfort often masks fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discovering that you're not as capable as you hoped. So you stay in environments where expectations are low. You stay around people who don't challenge you. You keep your ambitions vague so you're never tested. It feels safe, but safety can become a cage. When you choose comfort repeatedly, your world shrinks. You stop taking calculated risks. You stop pushing your limits. You stop exploring your potential.
I need about 4 more of these, look like these small cups.
Because it was never built on tested strength. It was built on avoidance. Consider the employee who has an idea for improving the company's operations. They see inefficiencies. They know they could contribute more. So speaking up might attract attention. It might increase responsibility. It might expose them to criticism. So they stay quiet. Years pass. They feel overlooked, underpaid, unfulfilled. Yet the initial decision to remain comfortable and silent set the trajectory. Choices lead to patterns. Patterns lead to outcomes. The market rewards value. Value is created through skill, discipline, and consistent effort over time. None of those are born from comfort. They are born from sustained engagement with difficulty. The investor who studies businesses deeply instead of chasing trends builds understanding. The entrepreneur who reinvests profits instead of inflating lifestyle builds resilience. The athlete who trains when no one is watching builds durability. In each case, short-term comfort is sacrificed for long-term leverage. Leverage is the reward for delayed ease. And here's the uncomfortable part. The world does not adjust to your comfort level. It adjusts to your confidence level. Opportunities flow toward those who are prepared. If you spend years choosing what's easy, you may find yourself unprepared when opportunity finally appears, and opportunity does not wait. Divided priorities are another form of comfort, saying you want excellence while giving half effort. Keeping one foot in ambition and one foot in distraction. This split focus feels balanced, but it produces diluted results. Deep work requires full engagement. Mastery demands concentration. When your attention is fragmented, your output is average, and average effort yields average returns. The tragedy is not immediate failure, it's slow stagnation. You wake up one day and realize you are capable of more, but you never built the habits required to access it. Regret is not dramatic, it's quiet. It's the awareness that you could have been further if you had been more disciplined earlier. None of this means you should eliminate rest or joy. Rest is strategic, joy is necessary. But there's a difference between intentional recovery and habitual avoidance. One restores you for the next effort, the other replaces effort entirely. Ask yourself a simple question. Are your daily choices aligned with the person you claim you want to become? If not, comfort is likely in control. Long-term thinking changes everything. When you evaluate decisions based on where you need in 5 to 10 years, the appeal of immediate ease weakens. You start to see that every action is an investment. Time is capital. Attention is capital. Energy is capital. Where you allocate them determines your future net worth, not just financially, but physically, intellectually, and emotionally. Comfort is not evil. It should be costly when overused. It should be earned, not defaulted to. When you deliberately choose discomfort in service of growth, you are not punishing yourself. You are expanding your capacity. And capacity is what allows you to handle bigger responsibilities, seize larger opportunities, and build a life that is not fragile. The question is not whether you deserve comfort. The question is whether you're willing to pay for it with your potential. Your circle is never neutral. It is either stretching you or shrinking you, even when it feels harmless. Human beings absorb standards the way lungs absorb air. You don't notice it happening, but it's happening constantly. The conversations you tolerate, the behaviors you laugh at, the excuses you hear repeatedly, these things quietly shape what you believe is normal. And what you believe is normal determines how high you aim. If the people around you treat discipline like a punishment and ambition like arrogance, belonging is powerful. Most people would rather lower their standards than risk isolation, so they adjust. They say they want more, but they soften their language. They minimize their goals. They delay action so they don't stand out too much. Over time, that adjustment becomes identity. It starts small. You plan to wake up early.
This is how you peel.
The night before, your friends invite you out. You go because you don't want to seem distant. One late night turns into a habit. Your morning becomes slow. Your focus becomes fragmented. Months pass. The skill never compounds. The opportunity cost is invisible and real. You trade progress for approval. This is how anchors work. They don't drag you down dramatically. They apply steady resistance, enough to slow you, enough to keep you where you are. Now consider the opposite environment. You sit at a table where people discuss investments instead of gossip, where they analyze mistakes instead of blaming circumstances, where discipline is respected, not mocked. You don't need a motivational speech in that room. The standard is clear. The expectation is unspoken but understood. If everyone else is improving, you feel compelled to improve, not out of insecurity but out of alignment. Environment reduces or increases friction. In a low-standard circle, growth requires constant self-defense. You have to justify your routine. You have to explain why you're leaving early to train, why you're saving money instead of spending, why you're reading instead of scrolling. That repeated explanation drains energy. Eventually, many people stop explaining and you stop acting. It's easier to conform than to constantly resist. The cause and effect is predictable. Surround yourself with complacency and you slowly normalize it. Surround yourself with intentional people and you gradually adopt their habits. The trade-off is comfort versus expansion. Staying in familiar spaces feels easier. Seeking better environments often requires humility. You may be the least experienced person in the room. You may feel behind. That discomfort is not a threat. It is a sign of growth potential. There is also a quieter layer to this. The people closest to you influence your perception of risk. If everyone in your circle plays small, taking a calculated risk feels reckless. If everyone invests in themselves, risk feels strategic. Perception shapes action. Action shapes results. Think about someone who wants to start a business. If their circle constantly emphasizes stability and security, they will focus on what could go wrong. They will hesitate. They will analyze endlessly. Years pass in preparation mode. On the other hand, if they are around people who understand leverage, who talk openly about failure as tuition, the same idea feels executable. The difference is not intelligence, it's exposure. Your circle also influences your emotional ceiling. If you share good news and it's met with subtle envy or dismissive jokes, you will unconsciously dim your wins. Over time, you stop aiming for outcomes that might isolate you. This is how potential shrinks. Not through lack of ability, but through social calibration. This does not mean you abandon everyone who is not ambitious. It means you become intentional about proximity. Not everyone deserves front row access to your goals. Not everyone understands long-term thinking. Some people are comfortable surviving, you are trying to build. Those are different mindsets. Opportunity costs exist in relationships too. Time spent in daily conversations is time not spent refining value. Energy spent managing unnecessary drama is energy not invested in learning, building, or resting strategically. Attention is finite. If your environment consumes it with trivial matters, your focus fractures. Divided focus produces diluted outcomes. Look at how often conversations revolve around other people's lives instead of personal growth. Hours disappear discussing who did what, who said what, who's wrong. Meanwhile, no one improves their skills. No one strengthens their finances. No one expands their thinking. The cycle repeats weekly. It feels social. It feels connected. But it produces nothing of substance. Contrast that with a small group that meets regularly to review progress. They discuss what worked, what failed, what needs adjustment. They challenge each other respectfully. There is accountability. There is discomfort. There is growth. Over 5 years, the gap between these two groups becomes enormous, not because of luck, because of standard. Standard is contagious. You may believe you are immune to influence. Most people do. Yet behavior research consistently shows that habits spread through networks. If your close peers gain weight, your probability of gaining weight increases. If your peers pursue advanced education, your likelihood rises as well. Humans mirror. It's efficient. It conserves mental energy. But it also means your circle quietly programs you. There is a sacrifice required here. Elevation can feel lonely at first. When you start prioritizing long-term goals, some relationships will feel misaligned. You may need to reduce time spent in certain spaces. That reduction can feel like betrayal. It isn't. It's clarity. You cannot build a disciplined life inside a chaotic environment and expect consistent results. This is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. You respect people for who they are.
Hi, DJ.
Proximity based on where you are going. Ask yourself a hard question. Do the people around you make your future bigger or smaller? After spending time with them, do you feel sharper or drained? More focused or more distracted? Inspired to act or comfortable staying the same? The answers matter. If your circle is a ladder, each interaction adds perspective, skill, or accountability. You climb without dramatic effort because the structure supports ascent. If your circle is an anchor, every attempt to move forward meets resistance. Over time, you internalize that resistance as doubt. Doubt limits action. Limited action limits results. Limited results reinforce doubt. The cycle continues. Long-term thinking demands strategic relationships. You would not invest your money randomly. You research, you assess risk, you consider returns. Yet many people invest their time, their most valuable asset, without evaluation. They allow proximity based on history rather than trajectory.
That's how you
history explains where you begin. Trajectory determines where you go. If you are serious about growth, you must be serious about environment. You cannot expect discipline to thrive where distraction is celebrated. You cannot expect ambition to flourish where mediocrity is normalized. And you cannot expect focus to survive constant noise. Choose carefully. The people around you are either multiplying your effort or dividing it. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment. People treat it like a restriction placed on their freedom when in reality it is the very mechanism that creates freedom. It is not loud. It does not impress anyone in the short term. It rarely looks glamorous. But over time, it behaves like a financial asset. It compounds quietly, and the returns are disproportionate to the daily effort invested. Think about money for a moment. If you invest a small amount consistently, the growth at first seems unimpressive. The early years test your patience. You could easily conclude that the effort is not worth it. But compound interest is not designed to impress you early. It is designed to reward you later. Discipline operates the same way. The first weeks of waking up early, sticking to a routine, or saying no to distractions feel insignificant. You do not see dramatic change. But what you are building is not immediate results. You are building reliability. Reliability which itself is rare. Many people have goals, but very few have internal consistency. They promise themselves they will act. They negotiate when the moment arrives. I'll start tomorrow. I'll skip just this once. Those negotiations seem harmless, but each one weakens self-trust. And when self-trust erodes, execution becomes fragile. Execution depends less on motivation and more on identity. If you see yourself as someone who follows through, action becomes automatic. If you see yourself as someone who tries but doesn't finish, hesitation becomes automatic. Discipline shapes identity by reinforcing evidence. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you deposit proof into your own mind that you are dependable.
Because there's a bug in the back.
Did he wash up? Did you make sure he washed up?
I have
The
no
first few
idea.
workouts are uncomfortable.
Alright, it's fine.
There's soreness, inconvenience, resistance, the visible
You just want him to go get dressed?
Yeah, that's, he'll get his clothes on.
Seems low, but if they continue for a year,
He's
something
out,
shifts.
like he,
Their energy improves, their
Right.
confidence increases, their posture changes. More importantly, their belief in their own capabilities strengthens. That belief spills into other areas. They approach work with more structure. They manage time better. They become less reactive under stress. The initial decision to endure small discomfort created a cascade of positive outcomes. Cause and effect is consistent. Small disciplined actions to improve capacity, to greater opportunities, standards, inconsistent effort, missed opportunities, unrestricted options. Look at finances again. A person who spends impulsively feels temporary pleasure. The purchase provides a short spike of satisfaction, but repeated impulsive spending builds pressure. Debt accumulates, stress increases, freedom decreases. My decisions are constrained by obligations. The trade-off was immediate enjoyment for long-term limitation. On the other hand, the person who budgets carefully and invests regularly experiences a different trajectory. In the beginning, they may feel restricted. They say no more often. They delay gratification. But over time, their options expand. They can take risks. They can change careers. They can endure downturns. The same principle applies beyond money. Discipline expands optionality. Optionality is power. When you are disciplined, you are not forced into decisions by desperation. You have margin, you have preparation, you have leverage, and leverage changes the quality of your life. There is also a cognitive benefit. Discipline simplifies decision making. When your standards are clear, you do not debate every choice. You already decided. You do not argue with yourself about whether to train, whether to study, whether to follow through. The decision was made in advance. This reduces mental fatigue. Undisciplined living, ironically, is exhausting. Constant negotiation drains attention. You spend more energy deciding to do it. Human behavior tends toward the path of least resistance. Discipline deliberately creates resistance in the short term to reduce resistance later. It front loads effort. Most people invert this. They avoid effort early and take compounded difficulty later. Think of a student who studies consistently throughout the semester. Each day requires moderate focus. The workload feels manageable. Compare that to someone who procrastinates and prepares before exams. The stress spikes, sleep declines, performance suffers. The difference was not intelligence. It was
almost
disciplined
what time is it?
distribution of effort. The same pattern shows up in careers. A professional who invests time each week in improving their skills remains relevant. They read, practice, refine. When industry shifts occur, they adapt. Meanwhile, someone who relies only on current competence becomes outdated. When change arrives, they panic. The disciplined person built resilience before it was required. There is a sacrifice embedded in discipline. You will say no more often. You will sometimes feel out of sync with people who prioritize immediate pleasure. You may appear rigid to those who misunderstand long-term thinking. But sacrifice is not loss when it is intentional. It is a strategic allocation of resources. Misplaced focus is one of the quiet destroyers of disciplined living. You cannot be deeply committed to growth while constantly fragmenting your attention. Checking notifications every few minutes, consuming endless information without application, jumping between goals without completing any of these habits erode the structure discipline requires. Focus is the gatekeeper. Without it, effort scatters. The right priorities create diluted results. If you want mastery, you cannot treat your craft casually. If you want financial strength, you cannot treat money carelessly. Discipline demands alignment. What you claim to value must be reflected in how you spend your time and energy. There is an emotional maturity in accepting delayed rewards. It requires trusting that unseen progress is still progress. Many abandon disciplined paths because validation is absent in early stages, but growth rarely announces itself loudly. It accumulates quietly until the threshold is crossed. You may not feel different after 30 days of consistency. After 300 days, you will. Discipline also protects you from mood-driven decisions. Feelings fluctuate. Motivation rises and falls. If your behavior depends on how you feel, your results will be unstable. Discipline anchors you to standards independent of emotion. You act because it is aligned with your commitment, not because it is convenient. Over years, this stability builds reputation. Others learn they can rely on you. Opportunities gravitate toward reliability. Trust compounds externally just as self-trust compounds internally. It is slightly uncomfortable to admit, but many people avoid discipline because it removes excuses. If you commit fully and still fall short, you must confront your limits honestly. Partial effort preserves ego. It allows you to say, I could have done more. Discipline eliminates that escape. It demands full engagement. Yet full engagement is where growth lies. When you view discipline as an asset rather than a burden, your relationship with it changes. You understand that each small act of consistency is an investment. Not dramatic, not flashy, but cumulative. Years from now, the difference between a disciplined life and an undisciplined one will not be subtle. It will be structural. One will have options, confidence, and resilience. The other will have explanations. Every day you choose which account you are funding. Most people who say they feel stuck are not trapped by circumstances. They are trapped by hesitation. There is a difference. Being trapped means there is no available move. Hesitation means there is a move, but it requires a decision that feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is usually where growth begins, yet it is also where most people pause indefinitely. Indecision is not neutral. It has a cost. When you delay choosing a direction, you are still choosing. You are choosing to remain where you are. You are choosing to keep the current income, the current habits, the current relationships, the current results. Time does not wait for clarity. It continues moving, and your inaction compounds just as much as action would. Look at someone who dislikes their job but stays year after year because they are figuring things out. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. But what is actually happening? They wake up each day with low engagement. Their energy declines. They stop investing in new skills because they feel disconnected from their work. Promotions pass them by because their performance is average. 5 years later, their options are narrower, not wider. The trade-off for avoiding a difficult decision was stagnation. Clarity is expensive because it demands commitment. When you decide on a direction, you eliminate alternatives. That elimination feels risky. What if you choose wrong? What if you fail? What if people judge you? So instead, you stay in analysis mode. You research endlessly. You talk about possibilities. You wait for certainty. Certainty rarely arrives before commitment. Long-term thinkers understand this. They recognize that direction creates momentum, and momentum creates information. When you act, you learn. When you hesitate, you speculate. Speculation feels safer because it avoids visible failure, but speculation produces no results. Consider someone who wants to build a business but keeps refining the idea instead of launching. They read books, watch interviews, analyze markets. They tell themselves they are preparing. Preparation is important, but at some point, preparation becomes avoidance. Without execution, there is no feedback. Without feedback, there is no improvement. Years can pass in theoretical planning while others with less perfect ideas gain experience, contacts, and resilience. The cause and effect chain is simple. Decision leads to focused effort. Focused effort leads to skill development. Skill development leads to opportunity. Indecision leads to scattered attention. Scattered attention leads to minimal progress. Minimal progress reinforces doubt. Doubt then becomes the excuse to delay further. There is also a psychological comfort in staying undecided. When you haven't committed, you can preserve multiple identities. You can imagine yourself as an entrepreneur, an artist, a leader, without fully risking being none of them. Commitment forces reality to test you. It narrows your identity. That narrowing plays a struggle, but it's necessary for depth. Depth requires experience. You cannot pursue anything seriously without priorities quietly sabotage results. If you are committed to 5 different paths, you're likely to achieve moderate outcomes in all of them. That's freedom without focus. Focus demands a decision. Think about education choices. A student unsure of their path can switch majors repeatedly, taking classes that do not align with a clear direction. These choices can raise awareness, loyalty. Exploration has value, but intentional exploration delays People who committed early accumulate experience in one field. They build
How's it
networks,
going,
internships,
Charlie?
credibility. The undecided student has broader
Miss Charlie?
exposure but less depth. When opportunities arise, depth often wins. The same pattern appears in relationships. Someone unsure about committing to a partner
Gotta do this.
has 1 foot in and 1 foot out. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid long-term planning. They protect themselves from vulnerability. In doing so, they prevent growth. The relationship remains shallow. Eventually it collapses, not because of one dramatic event, but because of prolonged indecision. Indecision drains energy. Every unresolved choice occupies mental space. Should I leave? Should I stay? Should I invest? Should I wait? This constant internal dialogue consumes time that could be directed toward execution. Deciding removes that drain. Even if the path is challenging, it is at least clear. Quiet discipline in deciding. It means accepting trade-offs consciously. If you choose to build a business, you accept financial uncertainty early on. If you choose advanced study, you accept years of focused effort. If you choose to improve your health, you accept dietary limits and training schedules. Decision is not just choosing a goal, it is choosing the sacrifices that come with it. Many people want outcomes without embracing the trade-offs. They want financial independence without temporary lifestyle restraint. They want meaningful relationships without vulnerability. They want measurement without repetition. Indecision allows them to keep efficiency without confronting the cost. The opportunity cost is not always visible, but it is always present.
Watch this.
Every year spent in hesitation
I
is
just
a
gotta
year
turn
not
it
spent compounding progress. The earlier you commit, the longer compounding works in your favor. Waiting for the perfect moment is often a disguised fear of imperfection. Perfection is not required for progress.
Yeah, it is just
There is also the matter of identity.
crumbling.
When you decide
Looks to
firmly,
me to
your
see if you
behavior
want that.
begins to align automatically.
What you
If
want.
you decide I am building a disciplined life,
They clicked
certain
off
actions
quick.
no longer require
Don't worry.
commitment.
Y'all come back.
Night distractions become less appealing because they
Y'all come back.
chosen identity.
Once y'all
If you
try this,
decide,
y'all
I
see how
am
it just
becoming
fell apart. Look
financially
what it's pulled.
independent, impulse purchases
This
feel
is pulled
misaligned.
beef.
Decision simplifies behavior.
It's just cause it's been in there for 2 days. 2 days.
You act based on mood, convenience, or
Just haven't
social
started up
influence.
once.
That produces unpredictable results.
There we
It may
go.
feel
Now
hard
you
to
can
accept
see the
that
vision.
You are not stuck, but undecided.
And I based
But
it
that
yet,
realization is
but it's
empowering.
all good. 'Cause look at
If
that.
you were truly stuck, your options would be limited. If you
Know
are
what I'm doing.
undecided, your power remains intact. You simply have not exercised it. Long-term vision demands courage to choose and
They say.
humility to adjust. Decision does not mean rigidity. You can recalibrate as you learn. But recalibration requires movement first. You cannot steer a parked car. There will never be
Just
complete
come apart.
assurance. There will always be risk. The real risk is drifting for years under the illusion of safety. Drift rarely feels dangerous in the moment.
Mix them
It
all
feels
up.
comfortable, familiar, manageable. Only later does the cumulative effect become clear. If you look closely at your life, you will likely find 1 or 2 areas where clarity is overdue. A conversation you avoid, a path you hesitate to commit to, a standard you know you shouldn't cross. That hesitation is costing you more than you realize. Momentum favors the decisive. Over time, consistent direction outperforms constant reconsideration. Even imperfect action builds resilience. Even flawed attempts generate experience. Experience refines judgment. Judgment improves
Homemade gravy.
the cycle strengthens.
It's
Staying
homemade.
undecided interrupts that cycle before it begins. The uncomfortable truth is that you may already know what needs to be chosen. You may be
Homemade
waiting for
roast.
permission, validation, or
I don't know what
reduced
kind it
favor.
was.
Those rarely arrive on their own. They follow commitment, not preceded. At some point, you must accept that clarity often emerges after the decision, not before.
Yeah, that's how you
Delayed
do it.
gratification is not about deprivation. It is about intelligent timing. It is the ability to look at something.
You seen how tender it was.
So calmly evaluate what it will cost you in the future.
Debate with somebody other than me.
They struggle because they consistently choose immediate relief over long-term reward. The pattern feels harmless in the moment, but damage appears
Debate that in the comments.
Human beings are wired for short-term survival. Immediate rewards once meant safety,
It ain't up.
comfort, social approval. These were signals that you were secure, but in a modern environment filled with constant stimulation, that wiring works against you. Every notification, every impulse purchase, every distraction offers a small dose of satisfaction. The brain registers it as a win, yet those small wins rarely move your life forward in any meaningful way. Think about money. A person receives a raise. Instead of investing or reducing debt, they upgrade their lifestyle. Better car, better phone, more dining out. It feels like progress because their surroundings improve. But if expenses rise at the same rate as income, the financial position does not change. Years later, despite higher earnings, they remain financially fragile. The trade-off was immediate status for long-term stability. Now imagine someone else receives the same raise and decides to maintain their current lifestyle. They invest the difference. At first, nothing about their external life changes. No one praises their restraint. It may even feel unfair when others appear to enjoy more visible rewards. But over time, investments compound, options expand. That person can take calculated risks, step away from unhealthy environments, or endure downturns without panic. The difference began with a single decision repeated consistently. Postpone gratification, cause and
Cornbread
effect.
didn't come out.
Immediate consumption leads to dependency. Delayed gratification builds leverage. This principle
Whatever.
extends beyond money. Consider health. Choosing convenience for
Okay.
preparation is easy. Skipping exercise is comfortable. Each choice feels minor, but repeated over years.
I know I need to work out.
Reflects those
I like to
decisions.
push ups
Energy
right now.
declines. Medical costs rise. Confidence drops. Reversing the damage becomes harder than preventing it would have been. The
fix
early trade-off time and discipline for health was rejected in favor of comfort.
That's getting
The
that.
later cost is far higher. The same dynamic appears in skill development. Mastery demands repetition, often boring repetition. Practicing fundamentals when no one is watching. Studying when others relax. Refining details that few notice. The immediate reward is minimal. There is no applause for disciplined practice.
That's how you redeem
But the
yourself.
long-term outcome is confidence that cannot be easily replaced. That confidence translates into opportunity,
Ooh, crumb
income,
inside.
and influence. The person who chooses entertainment over preparation may feel balanced in the short term, but over time they become average in a competitive world. Delayed gratification requires clarity of vision. If you do not have a long-term aim, short-term pleasure will always win. The present is tangible. The future is abstract. To choose the future consistently, you must believe in it strongly enough to sacrifice for it. This is where many people struggle. They say they want success, stability, or impact, but their daily choices contradict those goals. They divide their focus. They attempt to build while constantly indulging distractions. The result is diluted progress. You cannot deeply invest in your future while repeatedly withdrawing from it to satisfy impulses.
Those
There
are
is
good.
also a social element.
There you,
Society often rewards visible consumption more than quiet investment.
there you have it.
Driving an expensive car draws attention. Building a solid investment portfolio does not. Posting about vacations gains approval. Spending weekend studying does not. If your decisions are influenced by external validation, delayed gratification is still longer.
Keep on dancing at the, you can keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club, or you can get in the kitchen and get your man. It's gonna take care of it. Just saying.
Rewarding yourself for effort that never occurred. Discipline first, reward later. Effort first, enjoyment later. When the order is reversed, First,
Go on to the Pink Pony Club then.
think about relationships. Choosing to address small issues early can feel uncomfortable. Honest conversations require vulnerability and
I'm sorry.
patience.
Yeah.
Ignoring issues feels easier. You avoid tension in the moment, but unresolved
Look at
problems compound just like debt. Over time, resentment builds. Communication deteriorates. The eventual conflict is far more painful than the initial conversation would have been. Delayed
Let's think of sweet
gratification in this
potatoes.
context means
Damn.
choosing short-term discomfort for
And there you
long-term
have it.
stability. Long-term thinkers understand that time amplifies decisions. They view each
So,
choice
that's
as
it.
part of a larger trajectory. They ask not just, do I want this now, but where does this lead? That second question changes behavior. It forces you to confront
He
opportunity
ain't gonna
costs.
do nothing to waste half
3
that.
hours scrolling. What did you not build in those 3
Yeah.
hours? If you spend beyond your means, what investment did you postpone? If you avoid training today, what resilience did you fail to develop? Opportunity cost is invisible, which is why it is often ignored. But it is real. Every yes is a no to something else. Every indulgence displaces a
Eat a little bit now, take some to
There
work.
is power and restraint. When you can control impulses, you are not easily manipulated by circumstances. You are less reactive to marketing, less pressured by social trends, less influenced by temporary emotions. Emotional control enhances strategic thinking. Strategic thinking improves outcomes. Delayed gratification also builds confidence. When you consistently prove to yourself that you can resist short-term temptation, you strengthen your sense of agency. You realize you are not controlled by mood or environment. That internal strength becomes visible in your decisions. Others notice reliability. Trust grows. The
Nice.
uncomfortable truth is
Sunday
that
dinner.
people subjugate their
What's today?
long-term potential for momentary
Thursday?
comfort.
Thursday
They trade
dinner.
years of progress for nights of distraction. They trade financial freedom for appearances. They trade mastery for convenience. The call is not immediate, which makes it deceptive. But eventually, results reveal it all. If you observe those who build enduring success, you will often find a common trait: patience. Not passive waiting, but active patience. They work consistently without demanding immediate results. They accept that growth has phases where nothing seems to change. They remain steady through those phases because they understand compounding. Compounding does not reward impulsiveness. It rewards consistency. It rewards delayed gratification. You do not need extreme sacrifice. You need disciplined sequencing. Work before reward. Investment before consumption. Practice before performance. When this order becomes habitual, your life begins to stabilize. Progress becomes predictable. Stress decreases because you are not constantly reacting to consequences of short-term decisions.
That's how you fix it.
The future is shaped quietly by what you repeatedly postpone or prioritize. Each day presents small choices that seem insignificant. Over time, they define you. I'm not talking to the version of you that wants quick motivation. I'm talking to the version of you that wants control. Control over your income, your relationships, your habits, your direction. Here's the reality. Life
And then you can just put that food up.
It waits,
Y'all get
then it multiplies what you
Yeah,
practice.
I'll just,
If you practice discipline,
I'll put that up
it
right now.
We're out.
multiplies
Y'all have a good night.
freedom. If you practice
Stay blessed.
avoidance, it multiplies